I'm slightly relieved that the one single word up on the screen behind you has gone. It said silence, and I hope it wasn't directed at me. Could we please have today's verse up? Thank you. It is Remembrance Sunday today, and the theme I have been asked to talk about is love, and in particular the verse that I hope you can see up on the screen. Greater love has no man than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. I usually start when I speak with a joke, but that didn't seem appropriate on Remembrance Sunday. But I was reminded this morning of a story. In fact, it's the only sermon I have heard that I can remember word for word. I was 13, nearly 20 years ago now. And the sermon was this: there is a time to speak and a time to be silent. Right now is a time to be silent. Yes, I was 13. But I'm going to let you down. I'm not going to be silent. But I'm going to ask you once again to be silent, this time just for 1 minute. And I'm going to ask you to do just one thing: to think, not to pray, just to think. And what I'd like you to think about is the people who have loved you. If that doesn't work, think about the people you have loved. And if that still doesn't work for you, think about how you would like to be loved. There are 3 questions I'm going to ask today. I'm not going to ask you for an answer because I'm going to try and give them, so no heckling. First, what is Jesus' idea of what love actually looks like? Second, can I really show Jesus' kind of love? And third, am I looking for opportunities, or am I looking for excuses? So let's go to the first one, Jesus' version of love. Jesus said that the greatest kind of love is to lay your life down for your friends. What does that actually mean, though? It may help to explain the context in which Jesus said that. It was Jesus' farewell dinner with his friends. He knew he was going very shortly to be arrested, tortured, and murdered. He knew that this was going to terrify and horrify his friends. He knew that they were going to desert him. But he also knew that they would remember what he said, so what he had to say was very important. So what did he say? Well, he started off by calling himself the vine. He called his friends the branches. He wanted his friends to thrive after he had gone, and to do that, they needed to remain planted, firmly rooted into Jesus and into his love. Only by being firmly plugged into Jesus and his love. Is that the time to finish? Sorry. I get the hint. Only by being firmly plugged into Jesus and into his love could his friends keep tapping into Jesus' endless source of love. Jesus wanted his friends to be confident of just how much he loved them. And you and I are his friends too. He wants us to be certain of his great love, and that love is for us, But it isn't just for us. And here's how Jesus put it again in John 15. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. You and I should love each other in the same way in which Jesus loved. The same way in which Jesus demonstrated his great love. In fact, not just great love, but the greatest love. And if we're to take Jesus at his word, that means being willing to lay our lives down for each other. Please don't panic. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be crucified. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to die at all. So what does it mean if you're going to lay your lives down for each other? I think it helps to have a look to see what St. Paul had to say. He was speaking in the context of marriage, but he used very similar language to Jesus, and he said this: husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. You won't see the word death used there in what Paul had to say, but he does focus on you giving yourself up. So it's about sacrifice. Jesus' friends, that's you and it's me, should show each other unconditional, unselfish love, just like Jesus did. It shouldn't really come as any surprise to us that Jesus was constantly talking about love. And I've got another example for you on the screen. A new command I give you: love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. Now, there's a puzzling word in those two sentences. It's the word new. Why was this a new command? After all, the Jews had been told to love your neighbor as yourself since the time of Moses, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. The way to focus on what Jesus meant by calling it a new command, therefore, is to think about just one word, and the word is neighbor. The Jews would have thought of their neighbors as their fellow Israelites. That's it, nobody else. Jesus, however, had very different ideas, and to explain who Jesus thinks your neighbor is, he told a story. You can read all about it in Luke chapter 10, but I'm going to try and give you a brief paraphrase of it. A man was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho, and on the way, robbers beat him up. They stole everything he had, even what he was wearing. They left him for dead. A priest came along. If anyone should have known the law of love, it was him. But he just walked on by. No hint of love there. A Levite came along. The Levites were responsible for running the temple with the priests. If anyone else should have known the law of love, it was him. But he just walked on by. No hint of love there. Finally, a Samaritan came along. This man saw a victim in desperate need. He acted immediately. He dressed the victim's wounds himself. He put the victim on his own donkey. He carried him off to an inn. He paid the innkeeper, and he promised to come back and pay yet more if needed. Now, does that sound more like love to you? But remember, I'm not just telling you this story to try and explain what love is about. I'm retelling Jesus' story so that we have a better understanding of who our neighbor is. So not about love, but what to do with love. This story is about a Samaritan and an unidentified victim. Let's assume he was an Israelite. And to understand Jesus' meaning, we have to know who Samaritans were. Samaritans were held in complete contempt by the Israelites. They were the lowest of the low. Israelites would have nothing to do with them. They wouldn't socialize with them. They wouldn't talk to them, and they certainly wouldn't cross the road to help them. Jesus' audience would have been furious, offended that Jesus held up a Samaritan as a model for them. The point is, this Samaritan was willing to take a risk, to show compassion and kindness, love, to a complete stranger, even an enemy, just because his enemy needed it. And that's the kind of love that Jesus displayed, ultimately on the cross. And he's looking for exactly the same kind of love in you and me, that we should show compassion and kindness to anyone. The only qualification they need to have is need. Can you think of anyone who doesn't need it? That person we should treat without discrimination, without regard to cost, whoever they may be. And that brings me on to my second question. Can I really show Jesus' kind of love? And do you know what? I'm not sure that I can. I love the idea of unselfish love as long as I don't have to practice it. It just sounds so inconvenient and costly. And I'm going to be bold. I might even reveal a little bit about me. I'm willing to be helpful. I'm even willing to be served. To be served, of course, I'm willing to be served. Sorry, to serve you. But my first thought is almost always this: what's in it for me? Now, that's my problem. That's not unselfish love. That's not sacrificial love. It may not, in fact, even be love at all. But I want to try and give this concept a go. But the problem that I really have is how. And I think there are two helpful points to make. One, motivation. How do I get motivated to show unselfish, sacrificial love? And two, help. I can't do it on my own. So look, let's think about motivation. And this is where I need some help from the audience, please. That's just to wake you up. Okay? Hands up who would like to be loved. Everyone, oh, even Tim. Great. If you haven't got your hand up, by the way, thank you, Eddie. You can put it down now. If you haven't got your hand up, I don't believe it. I think the truth is that we all want to be loved. And I wonder why that is. Well, I think there's a very simple answer. It's because we were made to be loved. God made us. He made us to be loved by him, but also by each other. Now, I put the following words into Google to see if I could get some help. I typed in, the best way to be loved is... Any ideas? To give love to others. That sounds good. Anyone else? Any bright ideas how to be loved? Yeah, well, Sean, you'll like this one. The best, according to Google, is... I'm really sorry, Sean. Lose weight. That's working. You're lovely. But I find wearing black works quite well, but there we go. Now, I don't believe Google. I certainly don't believe the best way to be loved is to lose weight. And can I say, I'm going to let you into a big secret that Eddie has already worked out. The best way to be loved is to love. Well done, Eddie. You're absolutely right. The best way to be loved is to love. It's not rocket science. Think about a Formula One engine. It's amazingly designed, but sitting idle, it's useless and ineffective. It's just a lump of metal and stuff. Whereas when it's doing what it was designed for, it's phenomenal. It may break down, but the designer is always there to fix it. And I think it's the same for you and me. We're amazingly designed, but sitting idle, we are useless and ineffective. We're just a lump of flesh and bone and muscle in Sean's case. Whereas doing what we were designed for, we are phenomenal. We may break down, but our designer Jesus is always there to fix us. But of course, we may have a go at doing what we were designed for. We may love other people, but we might not get anything back. That's a risk. But I actually think the act of loving others is a reward in itself. We're doing what we were made for. We are at our best. And anyway, it's much more likely to work if we have a go than if I sit at home on my backside feeling sorry for myself because I think nobody loves me. So one last word on motivation. Jesus is our role model. What impact did he have? Some people, the religious types, hated him pretty much because they felt threatened by him. But most people were amazed by Jesus. Why? Well, he showed kindness. You're right, Eddie. He spoke with authority. His words were powerful. His work was powerful. But there's something more. It isn't just what he did. It's how he did it. Everything he did with sincerity and, of course, love. Now, people are pretty wise. I think pretty much everybody can spot insincerity a mile away. But what they saw in Jesus was complete sincerity. And I think it's Jesus' sincerity and love, his passion, that made him so attractive, so appealing to the people around him. And you know what? It can be exactly the same for us. If we show the same kind of love as Jesus, people are going to find us attractive and appealing. That sounds like pretty good motivation to me. But how on earth can I hope to put all of that into practice? To me, it sounds like a tall order. After all, I know what I'm like on the inside. I'm weak and I'm unreliable. I can't do it on my own. And that brings me to the help which is on offer. Who can I get to help me? And how can I get that help? And these are really easy to answer. The best person to help me to do what Jesus wants me to do is Jesus. He's promised each one of us his Holy Spirit, our helper with a capital H. And we have other helpers too. Family, community, and the word for family and community is called church. Those are the same people that are sitting in this room today. We're here to help, encourage, and challenge one another to bring out the best in each other. And that's the point of church. How do you get that help? Simple answer, you ask for it. You ask Jesus by praying, and we ask each other by just asking. It's really easy, but it needs to be easy. It's tough to ask unless you're already in relationship with Jesus first, but also with each other. It should be easy to ask for help and it's down to each one of us to make it easy. Now, for my third and final question. Am I looking for opportunities, or am I looking for excuses? I'm going to break the golden rule of speaking, especially speaking in church, and I'm going to talk about me. I've been coming to Freedom for many years, and I really enjoy it. But I do have a complaint about Freedom. I don't always feel part of it. I've tried to work out whose fault that is. Is it Tim? Is it John? Is it the invisible Andrew? He's down at Freedom Centre, by the way. Or is it the fault of all of you? Actually, if I'm honest, the one person whose fault it is mine. I have to learn that I get out of church what I put into church. And let me explain a little bit more about my thinking. I'm constantly hearing of opportunities to serve. I can be part of the welcome team. I could make the tea, I could make the coffee, I could help to run a life group. There are endless, dozens, literally dozens of possibilities for me to play a part. But do you know what I say to myself? Someone else can do that. It's beneath my dignity. I'd have to get up earlier, and it's not really terribly convenient. This is all pretty pathetic, isn't it? Yes. Thank you, Tim. Oh, he's just woken up. Someone asked him if he wanted lunch. Sorry. I'm only going to feel a real part of this church if I play my part in this church. But I'm pretty confident that you're not like me. And I know that you're going to go away today not thinking about excuses, but thinking about the opportunities. And one tiny word of encouragement, please think about one thing that you could be doing to play your part in this church.